Welcome to this next episode of our virtual tour of the Holy Land. Today, we are standing in the old city of Jerusalem, in the Jewish quarter, as we look upon the Golden Menorah. The menorah was constructed by the Temple Institute and is based on extensive research carried out by the academic and biblical researchers. Often, pilgrims just walk past this menorah, give it a quick glance as they head down the street for shawarma or an ice cream.
The shawarma is amazing, I'll admit, and the ice cream is fantastic, especially on a hot day. But today, we won't be ignoring the Golden Menorah because it carries the promises of God. Perhaps you've seen menorahs and wondered, what is their significance? Well, Hans is about to share details about the menorah in general, as well as this very specific golden menorah that you may not have known about. Before we listen to Hans, please join us on a short virtual tour about this and other menorahs. Then join our family as we lead you in a short time of worship before we hear Hans's message. Now, please join us on this quick menorah tour. Welcome, dear friend, to another episode of the Breakforth Virtual Holy Land Tour. Today, we'll take a short look at the rich biblical references and the profound spiritual significance of the menorah to both the Jewish and the Christian faith. Join us as today we explore the golden thread that runs from the ancient menorah to our own lives today. The menorah shines brightly in the Bible, symbolizing God's light and His guidance. In Exodus, God tells Moses to make a golden menorah for the tabernacle, a symbol of His constant presence and His guidance. Make a lampstand of pure gold, hammer out its base and shaft, and make its flower-like cups, buds and blossoms of one piece with them. 6 branches are to extend from the sides of the lampstand, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. 3 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms are to be on one branch, 3 on the next branch, and the same for all 6 branches extending from the lampstand. And on the lampstand, there are to be 4 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms. 1 bud shall be under the first pair of branches, extending from the lampstand, a 2nd bud under the 2nd pair, and a 3rd bud under the 3rd pair, 6 branches in all. The buds and branches shall all be of one piece with the lampstand, hammered out of pure gold. Then make it 7 lamps and set them up on it so that they light the space in front of it. Its wick trimmers and trays are to be of pure gold. A talent of pure gold is to be used for the lampstand and all these accessories. See that you make them according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. The making of the menorah, as described in Exodus chapter 25, is packed with deep meanings and symbols. God told Moses to make it out of pure gold for the tabernacle, where the Israelites worshipped while traveling through the desert. This 7-branched lampstand, decorated with almond blossoms, was not just any piece of decoration, it was a powerful symbol in several ways. It represented God's presence. The menorah's constant light in the tabernacle and later in the temple was a sign of God being with His people all the time, guiding them like a light in the darkness. And the same is true today. Wisdom and insight. The light from the menorah also represents the wisdom and understanding that come from following God. It reminds us of the enlightenment we can gain from living in the light of God's will. Beauty and balance. The design of the menorah, perfectly symmetrical with a central stem and 6 branches, symbolizes the beauty and balance in the world that God created. All we need to do is to look around our world and to look up to the skies to see the harmony and balance in God's creation. New beginnings. The almond blossoms remind us of the new beginnings we experience when we follow God's plan. Just like the Israelites experienced a new beginning during their exodus from their captivity in Egypt, we too experience new beginnings day by day as we enter God's plan for our lives. Community. Although the menorah has branches going in different directions, they all come from the same base, reminding us that despite our differences in the heart of God, we can all share the same foundation and light. In short, the menorah's construction is about more than just following God's instructions. It's about God's constant presence, the wisdom we gain from Him, and the richness of unity we experience when we're a part of God's community of faith. The spiritual significance of the menorah spans across both Jewish and Christian beliefs. For the Jewish community, it commemorates the Hanukkah miracle, the enduring flame that miraculously burned for 8 days on a mere day's supply of pure oil in the rededicated temple. For Christians, the menorah symbolizes Jesus Christ, proclaimed as the light of the world through His declaration, "I am the light of the world," found in the Gospel of John. We are reminded that the light of Christ will never ever be extinguished, and that we too are called to be the light of the world to others in darkness. Now let's step into the heart of the Jewish quarter in the old city of Jerusalem, home to the awe-inspiring golden menorah. This meticulously crafted 7-branched masterpiece stands as a vibrant symbol of unwavering faith, a bridge to the past, and the Jewish people's enduring connection to their ancestral homeland. From its scriptural roots in Exodus to the resplendent golden menorah that adorns Jerusalem today, the menorah conveys an eternal message of hope, of faith, and of unity across generations. We're reminded of Psalm 119:105. Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path. Thank you for joining us for this quick look at the richness of the menorah, both its past importance and its relevance to us today. Until our next Breakforth virtual tour of the Holy Land, may your heart be set alive with the light and the fire of the Spirit of God.
The splendor of the King, clothed in majesty. Let all the earth rejoice, all the earth rejoice. He wraps himself in light, and darkness tries to hide, and trembles at his voice, and trembles at his voice. How great is our God? Sing with me, how great is our God? is our God, and all will see how great is our God. Name above all names, worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. Name above all names, worthy of all praise, and my heart will sing how great is our God. How great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. And how great is our God. Sing with me, how great is our God. And all will see how great is our God. How great is our God.
Okay, friends, what you are looking to now is a menorah. And you are looking at the first menorah, 7-branch candle made with the real material according to cutting-edge research in the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, what we call the Old Testament, and all the Talmud and archaeological findings and what have you. Cutting-edge research has led to the recreation of the 7-branched candlestick, the menorah. That's the first time in 2,000 years that you can see it. I will never forget when I visited the Temple Mount Institute for the first time, pretty soon after the turn of the millennia. Nowadays, you can see their exhibitions at perhaps the best spot, one of the best spots in all of Jerusalem, right before we descend the staircase down to the Western Wall. You can see their exhibition to your right if you turn like this when you start to descend the stairs. And it's big. Well, the first time I met them, the Temple Institute, their exhibitions, it was very small, almost like a closet. I'm a little bit exaggerating, but not so much. And it was not over here at all. It was at a small street, ways away. And it seemed like almost no one cared about what they did. Very few people in Israel altogether. But after that, they have now made almost all the material to the temple, all items. Of course, they cannot reproduce the Ark of the Covenant, since that is unique. But they can for sure reproduce the other items. They said to me then the number 93, that they have reproduced 93 of the items that was in the temple 2,000 years ago. This is the first time in 2,000 years that this has happened. You could say the push for it in our day and age started in 1967, going back to the Six-Day War. They came up on the Temple Mount, and there were many different opinions what they were to do. Were they to take over the Temple Mount or give it back to the Muslims? And they did something in between. Israel has sovereignty over all of Jerusalem and Israel, of course, but still they have, in a way of speaking, given back the authority over the Temple Mount itself to the Waqf. But some Jews who saw them getting access to the Temple Mount, and they were actually there themselves, they had a vision. Shouldn't we rebuild the temple? That's actually what we have been praying for over 2,000 years. So why shouldn't we start to do that? And you know, I'm Jewish on my father's side, and they say 2 Jews, 3 opinions. So there are very different opinions among religious Jews as to if this is a good thing or not. And to simplify the different views, you can say that there are those who have the opinion that this is not something that you should do, because when the Messiah comes, he will bring forth the temple himself. While as many others believe, and not the least the Temple Institute, that quite the opposite. It is our duty, our God-given duty, to reproduce and to build up the temple again if we have the opportunity. Okay? But for now, I just want you to see this menorah, and it is quite amazing. As you can see, it's not small, it's quite big. And it actually says in 2,000-year-old texts that when the priests were to refill oil in the oil lamps, because it really is 7 oil lamps, they had to walk upstairs, a little staircase, or whatever you say, that they put alongside the 7-branch candlestick to be able to come up high enough to fill it with oil, to refill it with oil. So I will move up now and just take a look at it. It's kind of interesting to see what the text says here. It says, golden menorah was recreated for the first time since the destruction of the Second Temple, that's 2,000 years ago, according to the research conducted by the Temple Institute. We look in Exodus chapter 25, verse 31. And the text goes like this. You are to make a lampstand out of pure hammered gold. It is to be made of one piece. Its base and shaft, its ornamental cups, and its buds and petals. 6 branches, look at it, are to extend from its side. 3 branches of the lampstand from one side, and 3 branches of the lampstand from the other side. And now comes one beautiful detail here. This is instructions from God, mind you. And it goes like this, verse 33. There are to be 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, each with a bud and petals on one branch, and 3 cups shaped like almond blossoms, each with a bud and petals on the next branch. So what God instructed for this menorah was that all of the 7 branches should have an oil lamp on top, and that should be created like almond blossoms. And can you see that it is flowers that are holding the oil lamps? And by the way, this is heavy. You can feel the weight of it inside the Temple Institute. It's heavy. So 7 oil lamps, where you constantly need to renew it with oil. Do you remember Nazareth Village yesterday? How they made olive oil? And some of the oil went for usage in the temple. That the purest oil, the first pressing, the virgin oil, for the lamps in the temple. So, 7 oil lamps. Just reflect on that. Oil in the Bible. That is something that is pointing to the Holy Spirit. Right? God himself. I think the first time we read about oil in the Bible is Genesis chapter 28. When Jacob is fleeing from his brother, and all of a sudden heaven opens and he sees this ladder coming down from heaven. And he calls the place Bethel, God's house. It's kind of interesting because house is the only thing he does not have, since his brother is persecuting him. So he calls the place house of God. And that was the only thing he didn't have, security or a house. So it seems like God anointed him at his weakest point, where he was the weakest. He lacked a house, he lacked security, but when heaven opened, he called the place house of God. And that's of course a description that connects to the temple, even though it was north of the temple, a couple of miles. And then what does Jacob do after he wakes up in the morning? You remember? The first time oil is mentioned in the Bible, he anoints the stone with shemen in Hebrew, with oil. He shows us that very, very early in the biblical history, oil was connected with God's presence. With God's, of course, Mashiach, the anointed one, connects to that. They anointed priests and kings with oil. We spoke about David earlier today. So, lamps of oil. Now, Jesus, doesn't he speak about oil too? You remember? The 10 virgins at the wedding, right? Well, it was all about having what? Everybody fell asleep. All the 10 fell asleep, which was a negative thing because they were to wait for the groom. So it tells you that, none of those 10 virgins were perfect. They all fell asleep. Like Jesus said about the apostles, that the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Right? But when they woke up, 5 had what? Oil in their lamps. And now, the almond tree. The almond tree is a very special tree in Israel. Why is it so special? What is special with the almond tree? Say it louder. Aaron's rod. Aaron's rod is significant because it starts to blossom, right? It's a sign that he is the true high priest. Amen. And if we speak about, plant life and how trees work here and so on, what is special with the almond tree? It shoots, and when? Well, the special thing about the almond tree is that it is known here to be the first tree that blossoms in the year. I have been on Megiddo in the winter, in actually January. That is so hard to say for a Swede. I try to say it in a tough English way. January. January. You know what I mean, right? Well, in the middle of the winter, we were at Megiddo, and my Swedish guy, he said, just come, Hans. He knows I love almond trees. Come and see. And I came, and on Megiddo, it was so prophetic, right there on the slope, an almond tree, already in January, not far after New Year's Eve actually, with white, beautiful flowers. So, they say in Israel that the almond tree is prophetic. It's a sign of what is to come. It's the first prophetic message that spring is coming. Now, let's take a look in Jeremiah. Jeremiah, he gets a message from the Lord connected to this, because it says, then the word of the Lord came to me asking, what do you see, Jeremiah? I replied, I see a branch of an almond tree. And that is in Hebrew, shoked, or shaked, an almond tree. I see a branch of an almond tree. And then it goes on in the next verse, verse 12, the Lord said to me, you have seen correctly, for I watch over my word to accomplish it. And it's the same word, shakad. The same consonants, which are the one who it carries the meaning in the Hebrew language, right? So to watch is the same word. It's just making a verb out of the word that means almond tree. To watch, since the almond tree is the watcher, the one who sees first the spring coming. And therefore, when God ordered the menorah to be shaped in the image, every oil lamp is resting inside a flower from an almond tree. That is God speaking and saying, I am watching over my word to fulfill it. See? God's ability to see the things that are hidden for everyone else. He sees our future. He sees everything. No one and nothing can hide from Him. That is the message, one of the messages with the 7-branched candlestick. That, of course, every day stood there and shone in the temple.
Thank you for joining us in the Old City beside the golden menorah. Hans shared that one of the greatest significance of the design of the menorah was to show that God is speaking and is saying, I am watching over my word to fulfill it. The menorah also represents that God sees the things that are hidden for everyone else. He sees our future. He sees everything. So perhaps you are wrestling with questions that you are struggling with. Perhaps it's a major decision, or perhaps you are going through a challenging time right now. Perhaps God wants to remind you today through this lesson on the menorah that He sees your future, or that He wants to remind you that He will always fulfill His word, even when we don't understand.
And speaking of not understanding, my father was killed when I was 7 years of age. He was at the height of his ministry. My mother was pregnant at the time, and she was left with 4 young children to raise alone and with very few resources. I struggled for years with this until finally I had to say to God, God, you know all. Your ways are higher than mine. I do not understand the whys, but I choose to place my trust in you day by day. You know the future. My life is in your all-knowing and all-loving hands. So why don't you take a couple of minutes right now to let Jesus know that despite your unanswered questions or the circumstances you find yourself in, that you choose to trust the God who is faithful to His word, knows all and sees all and loves with an all-embracing love. Let's pause now to consider that.
If you have not already done so, please go to breakforth.org to download the accompanying Bible study for this video. And if you would like to support this series to enable us to share this for free around the world, please prayerfully consider a gift by visiting breakforth.org.
Until next time. May God richly bless you, and may He break forth in wonderful ways of love, peace, and purpose in your life and in the lives of others.